movement without needing the bench. The bench really is just proprioceptive input. Hey, if I get too much anterior tibial translation, I'm going to bump the bench, right? And so we're just trying to keep, like, don't hit the bench is sort of the cue, but it's really a like sort of tactile cue to keep them. And what we're really saying is, hey, don't give me a really big forward weight shift where you're ending up with the weight over the ball of your foot. So don't give me kind of the ATG split squat. We want the opposite of that. That's why I always joke that I'm the knees over ankles guy in terms of, because if I got somebody with knee pain, I want knees over ankles. I want to be the total opposite of knees over toes. But eventually we will start to work some of that anterior tibial translation back into the mix as long as it stays pain-free.
Yeah. All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 409 of the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. I'm your host, Anthony Rana. Today we have on Coach Boyle. As you know, we alternate episodes. Hopefully you saw Rhett Larson last episode. We got Todd Durkin coming up later on this week. So with Coach Boyle, we talked about human kinetics is taking over designing strength training programs and facilities. And so I wanted to ask Coach Boyle if there were any changes in the book. And more importantly, I wanted to ask him, because the book is 20 years old, so I wanted to ask him about if he would change anything from a design perspective, and specifically with squat rack. So we're going to talk all about that. We talked about bench block split squats. Don't say that too fast. If you saw the intro, you saw the video of Kevin doing it and Coach Boyle talking about why he's using those for people with knee pain as a tactile cue so they don't hit the bench with their knee. So we got into a little bit of discussion of that. And then we talked about Jim Wendler's video on the success of his program and how simple it was. And that kind of got Coach Boyle and I talking all about different program design ideas and how many days you might want to change and what situations would that be from. We talked about taking some things away because Jim's program is so simple. And so that led to us a whole program design discussion. Guys, don't forget this week, Perform Better launches the summits, the functional training summits. Going to be in Chicago. I'll be there June 12th to 14th, starts on Thursday. Long Beach is July 17th to the 19th, and Providence is August 14th to the 16th. So they start on a Thursday, 3 different business talks. And then Friday and Saturday are all the lectures and practicals. Same as last year. They're going to do the networking room. Chris got a lot of great feedback from that. So there'll be 5 options each hour and 15 minutes. So you can either go to, there's 2 practicals to choose from, 2 lectures to choose from, or you can go hang with 2 or 3 of the lecturers and just go ask some questions or just go say hi. So lots of new speakers this year. No Sundays, just like last year. Chris kind of cut it down. Personally, I love that. And then on Friday night, they got the social. So Kevin Hirschman will be playing guitar. It can be some free beer and wine. Always a great time. Check out performbetter.com. You can bring your team. They have reduced rates for the team. They've been running some specials like bring a friend for free. So go to performbetter.com to check all that out. All right, Seth from Nomley is back today for the Maximizing the Member Experience segment, and he's going to talk about connecting on a more personal level because what he says is people aren't buying your program, they're buying into that relationship. And he calls this hot soup human connection. And Sumit always does a great job of taking experiences from his everyday life and then making them business lessons. So I think it's really important. And you don't have to own a gym to get something out of this. This is a really good lesson for all of us as trainers and really as people, to be honest with you, and how to maximize those times or those connections. So check it out.
Hey there. Welcome to Nomley's Maximizing the Member Experience segment with your co-host, Sumit Seth, the co-founder of Nomley. And today, we're talking about pho, this hot, delicious Vietnamese soup. I know, it's Arizona. I know this is hot soup. But today, it was raining cats and dogs here. It's a beautiful 76 degrees. A couple of days ago, it was about 100 degrees. So trust me when I say this hits the spot. it just brought back some memories. So a few months ago, Elias, is my colleague, and he and his dad were doing this cross-country drive, and they were going through Arizona. So they hit me up, and he's like, Sumit, do you want to get together and grab lunch? I'm like, absolutely, dude. Let's do that. And I would love to meet your dad too. So he's like, where do you want to hang out? I'm like, why don't you decide? Because you tell me what you like. He's like, I am chill. You tell me what you want. We're up for anything and everything. And that made me think, okay, do you want something upscale or do you want something just great food, a hole in the rock kind of a thing? And he was like, great food is all I need. So I took him to my favorite Vietnamese, this is hot, Vietnamese restaurant, and we had an amazing time. The food was awesome. His dad's amazing. We caught up, great company. Everything was fantastic. And that got me thinking, and that's where the lesson comes in, that many a times, if I had not done that, it would have been just another get together. Maybe we would have had a good time, but Elias and his dad raved about this place. They were like, dude, thank you so much for sharing this with us. And it just made the whole experience memorable. And that got me thinking that when we share something that's close to us with the person, it's just, we feel awesome. We feel more connected. And not only that, it's like we feel seen and accepted and understood. So a lot of times when we take the same conversation and put it into, or the same conversation, we put the same context into our businesses and just think about the member experience. It's not just about their goals, about their preferences, about what they like. There is absolutely some part of that, but the other best part is if we can bring our own experiences into the mix, share a part of our journey with them, it suddenly just takes the experience to a whole new level. And that's really, my friend, is the idea, because that's the thing that most people miss. That the best member experience happens when it feels like a real relationship. That means you as the coach or you as the gym owner brings something to the table, your energy, your quirks, your favorite shoulder mobility, this thing, or your daily smoothie recipe, whatever it is. These are not fluffs. They're connection points. These are human moments. They share that I care about your results, but I also want to share the journey with you. And most importantly, if you've been there, it just takes it to a whole new level, because now you can say, I walked in your shoes. And something magical happens, because you can't fake this stuff. They see the spark, they see the twinkle in your eyes. And it's just this amazing human connection, because it brings this trust together. And now that they trust you, they will do that exercise. They will change their nutritious behavior. And it just will get them those results. And many a times, what I was really trying to drive home is that the point about, it just becomes contagious. The point about how you're doing, what are you building together, what shares this thing, that passion just lights you all up. And that's what we really want to do. And it's the same thing with Namli. We just don't build tools for task management or scheduling or billing. Yeah, we do all that. We've done it. But the whole idea is we've built this platform that helps you connect. We help you share content, set nudges, celebrate wins, hold your members accountable, answer questions, and yes, even share your full level passions through your messaging system. That's amazing. Because your members aren't just buying a program, they're buying into a relationship. The more connected that relationship is, the longer they stay, the more they refer, the more they trust you. And hey, if you ever visit Arizona, lunch is on me. I know just the spot. And even if you're not big into pho, I know a lot of spots. So hit me up, let me know, and hopefully you found this segment worthwhile. Till then, just keep building that connection, and keep building a thriving business. Thank you.
All right, guys, now it's time for the shrinkcoach.com and mbsc.tv Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. Shrinkcoach.com, articles, videos, and the longest running forum in strength and conditioning and fitness. You can try it out for 7 days for free. Go to shrinkcoach.com to start your trial. Also, mbsc.tv, where you're a fly on the wall at MBSC. staff meetings. Well, coming up, no more staff meetings for the summer, but you can catch up on the winter ones and the spring ones. Programs, seminars, and in-services from top coaches. You can try that out for 7 days for free at nbsc.tv. Coach, how you doing?
I am doing great, Ian. How are you?
All right, all right. Hey, I'm not sure if I saw that you had posted on strengthcoach.com about I do not like this title, but Strength and Conditioning Coaching. That's your new book, but it's really not your new book. They're retitling it from, it was Designing Strength Training Programs and Facilities. Excuse tell me, I'm a little confused. Is it the third edition or is this the second edition with a new name?
This is the second edition with a new name. So basically, Human Kinetics bought the rights to the book from On Target, from Larry Draper's company. And I think Human Kinetics' feeling was that with better marketing, more people would read it. But they also felt that the title was not reflective because there was one chapter on facilities. And so they decided, they threw out a bunch of different titles. And I think Strength and Conditioning Coaching was the one that they felt was the best, which is fine.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me is I just want to make sure people realize it is effectively very similar to Designing Strength Training Programs and Facilities Volume 2. So I did go back and do some edits, but not, because it's really interesting because I'm in the process of doing the third edition of Functional Training for Sports, which will be significantly different than the first and the second, because in that book was 2016. So now we're talking about it'll be almost 10 years by the time the new edition comes out. And they're really, as I'm doing it, I'm finding, wow, there's a lot of stuff that I would talk about differently, much like there was from the first to the second edition. So
Like the first one.
For a guy that was going to be done writing books, I'm not done writing books.
The first one, Functional Training for Sports, that's 20 years, right? To over 20 years.
Over 20 years. Yeah. 2004. Wow. Yeah. Which is crazy. And again, we've talked about this, but I mean, when people read it, I'm like incredibly out of date. It's a perfect example of why, sometimes you don't read old books in subject matter areas, because there is a lot of stuff there that I would not agree with right now. 2016, we updated all that stuff. I would say it's still reasonably accurate, but yet in what will be the 2025 revision, there's quite a bit of stuff. The speed stuff, notably, right, is completely different, and even a lot of like the Alex Natera stuff, and kind of how we're approaching unilateral training. Even though all of the books featured unilateral training prominently, how we would look at that really varies from book to book to book.
Yeah. And over the years, especially with strengthcoach.com and the podcast, we've kind of answered questions. You've had to answer a lot of questions. So you've been able to kind of figure out, hey, what are they asking about single leg strength? I mean, I can't imagine how many times we've talked or kind of, and we're going to do it today, actually, with the bench block split squats. So, but how many times we've kind of had to clarify or just expand on certain things. So it's obviously, that's what the podcast and strengthcoach.com was for. But Mike, I do want to ask you about this book though, and it's really just about the design piece. Do you really, are you recommending people get squat racks? Like, I started to think about like your layout, you have kind of the pod idea, but the squat rack, I mean, you might be able to get away with. Obviously, you're putting.
I'll get away with that. The problem is what the squat rack really gives you more than anything is the chin-up bar. It gives you a chin-up bar and a place to barbell bench press. Because our squat rack, quote unquote, does not get used for a lot of squatting. Our major bilateral strength exercises, trap bar deadlifts, for which you don't need a squat rack. So, yes, if you were looking at it, you could probably. The problem is, you'd still need 6 chin-up bars, which means that's why, when we talked about that in the second book, that's why I was not averse to the half rack idea. Whereas I said in the first book, like, the first facility design book, don't buy half racks, because your chin-up bar ends up over your squat bar, and you can't do squats and chin-ups at the same time. Now that very rarely presents a problem for us. So It's not like if you looked at our racks and said, what do the racks primarily get used for? Bench press, chin ups, ring rows probably would be the three things that you see most frequently done in our racks, which is really interesting in terms of squat racks, and we don't really do a lot of squats.
Yeah, you almost could do not CrossFit style, but almost like some like boxes will have those almost like long cages, especially in your place, like where you could put six. You would still need the platforms though, right? You would still
Yeah.
want platforms for some of your cleaning and your trap bar deadlifts, right? To put that on there. And then you could have the bar across for
Yeah.
the pull-ups and
You could have any like those rig setups, anything like you don't need.
yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, I was wondering about that because I guess I wasn't sure if that was part of, again, it's hard. It's a hard thing to write about because you don't know how much square footage somebody's going to have or what their clientele is. So,
Exactly.
Mike, let's talk about the bench block split squats. I think I wanted to ask a little bit more on the more of the progression from that. So you're gonna, and I'll actually download the YouTube video and post it right now on this, but you showed you basically use the bench so to block the knee. So the knee doesn't go over the toe. For people that are having pain. So basically it's just a nice feedback. And the thing with the bench is I was thinking, oh, can't you just do it up against a wall? But that you can next after you get through the bench block one. So because your foot goes underneath the bench to actually
The problem with the wall is, sometimes when people lean in, your face would get close to the wall.
yeah.
But the bench works perfect because your foot is under the bench. Because even with the wall, you would get that anterior tibial translation equal to the length of your foot. Whereas if we put your foot under the bench, we can block you. Like if we want to block you dead at 90, we can do that. And we can give you kind of as much as we want.
So that's how you're progressing it. Okay.
Yeah, you're basically progressing it that way in terms of what you'd like to do is eventually get them being able to do the same movement without needing the bench. The bench really is just proprioceptive input. Hey, if I get too much anterior tibial translation, I'm going to bump the bench, right? And so we're just trying to keep like don't hit the bench is sort of the cue, but it's really a like sort of tactile cue to keep them. And what we're really saying is, hey, don't give me a really big forward weight shift where you're ending up with the weight over the ball of your foot. So don't give me kind of the ATG split squat. We want the opposite of that. That's why I always joke that I'm the knees over ankles guy in terms of because if I got somebody with knee pain, I want knees over ankles. I want to be the total opposite of knees over toes. But eventually we will start to work some of that anterior tibial translation back into the mix as long as it stays pain free.
Yeah. So pain free athletes coming in, you're not going to worry about knees over toes. You're like, fine. You're talking about the problem you have with knees over toes is for people that are in really knee pain.
People that have patellofemoral pain. It's exclusively patellofemoral pain,
okay.
not patella tendon pain, because patella tendon pain doesn't seem to have the same sets of problems. Like you're going to solve them differently. But patellofemoral pain is way more common. It's funny. I'm doing that. I'm getting ready my basketball presentation ready. And one of the things I always go back to, Jill Cook said, patella tendon pain is exclusively young jumping males. You said you won't see it in females generally because they're not explosive enough. They don't have enough vertical jump to really give themselves patella tendonitis. But in that, and it's really primarily going to be basketball, volleyball in the male category that are going to have true patella tendon, or track and field, or long jump, triple jump, high jump, those kind of people.
Mike, will you do a sort of Spanish split squat? I know you do Spanish squats, but do you do
Yes,
that?
I did those today myself actually because I'm going to show those at the basketball symposium. I'm going to bring some of those rubberized anchor point bands, and that's going to be part of my practical demonstration. Is that the Spanish split squat idea? Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's in
I did it
July.
today myself, and it feels so much better because my knees have been a little crunchy the last couple of weeks. I was doing some. I put a flooring in a floor down in Mark's apartment, so I was on my knees a lot, and my knees do not react as well to a couple days of kneeling as they used to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's brutal. That's in July. You're going to Vegas for the basketball symposium, right? Um, Actually, you should be taking me to that. I didn't get it for you. Matthew just asked me your email. So
You should be my plus one on that,
there
right?
you go. Cindy, you got to take Cindy. Great. Um, I told Matthew, I said, Matt, I can't promise you anything, but I can tell you right now, if Cindy wants to go to Vegas, you're in. So
And
you're
it
in.
actually ends up where she doesn't want to go, but I'm still going, and I'm just getting in and out quick myself. I'm just going. I'm
Yeah.
going in Friday, and then I'm red eyeing out Saturday.
Very cool. Very cool. Mike, you posted a video of Jim Wendler. It was a great video. He's talking about the success of his program, working with high school kids, and you really appreciated it. Like, hey, Jim gets it. Keep it simple. And Jim was talking about doing one main lift, two assisted lifts, and he still does all the jumping and running type stuff, and med ball probably and all that stuff. But obviously a warm up and then that stuff. But he was talking about doing one main and two assisted. And one of the things he talked about was he does he says, and this reminded me of Nate Van Kallenberg, is his wife is working with the middle school kids. So he's like, essentially, we have them for 6 years. So we're teaching these, by the time they get to the high school, they've already learned the right way. And he's really talking about, look, it's all about the consistency. We're just banging home this stuff. And it was kind of funny because he was like, look, if they don't want to work hard that day, I'm not even on them that much, right? He's like, he knows it's about that year program. And I just wanted to talk to you about this in terms of, this made me think about simplifying a program for some people even more, like that one main lift and two assisted, obviously depending on the goals. When you think about this, is there some things that we feel like we can start to trim in strength and conditioning, in the strength portion?
I think so, yeah. And that's why it's funny. Right now, I'm doing basically, we're doing with my college group one explosive lift and then two main lifts. So the other day we did trap bar jump, bench press, trap bar deadlift, and then basically a 1 by 20 format of 10 exercises after. So it was like, 10 chin-ups, 10 split squats, 10 rows, kind of hit every category once with one set. So we can buzz through that without really creating too much volume, but we can hit, like, I like the idea of being able to hit patterns. So I look at it and think, I want an anterior core exercise. I want a lateral core exercise. I want a split knee dominant exercise. I want some sort of hip dominant exercise. I want a upper pull. I want an upper, a vertical pull, a horizontal pull. But I think, yeah, I think you can make it way simpler. And that's I just love, it's funny because Jim, I think people have a perception of him because you think West Side and you think
Yeah.
531. But when you really listen to him talk about strength and conditioning, he's just a really good, smart, intuitive strength coach. And I posted links to it. He did a really great YouTube video one time just talking about, I think he said something like, we don't put a bar on a kid's back till he can goblet squat like X amount of weight for 20 reps or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's like, just all these simple rules of thumb that people make this. It's not complicated. Like just what he said about stacking good days, right? Like you got a kid, hey, it's not a good day, great. I have days I think, hey, come in, go through the motions, don't miss a day. But I'm not going to worry about today. I'm not that's not my concern. Not, and then you go back right to the Tony Holler thing, right? Don't let today's workout ruin tomorrow's, right? Don't it's it's not about being a hardo, which is what a lot of people think it is about with being a strength coach. It's about, and it's Zach DeCant's movement over maxes, right? Everybody talks about the same things, just stacking workouts. You get that kid in 6th grade who starts coming in, and you get him in 100 times, and you get him in 7th grade, and you get him in 100 times, and you get him in 8th grade, and you get him in 100 times, and ninth grade 100 times. Next thing you know, this kid's done 600 workouts, and suddenly even kids that didn't have great strength capacity end up with pretty decent strength because they just got a lot of workouts in. And that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, also it's a great time, right? So over time, you have no idea like the changes that are happening during that time. They come out in 10th grade, like you said, with those 600 workouts. They might feel like it might turn them, like you talked about this with youth sports, like let them try everything because they're going to pick the ones they're good at, right? And it's very similar. I mean, if they stay consistent, they might really end up being like, first of all, their movement quality will be amazing. They won't get hurt. And then they're like, this is something that they feel is important. And then they could start to get strong, feel like they're going to get stronger, get after it and be a little better. And their work in the gym will be a lot better.
Yep. And it honestly, and it does end up like, it was funny. I had a guy in, a graduate student from Merrimack came in and watched Mark and his group on Wednesday. And the same thing, they always remark like, wow, these guys are really good, very self-directed. Now they're 20 years old and they know what they're doing. Here's the exercises, here's how we're going to do it. And they just go and get their shit done. Like I'm not chasing them around at all. And that's a function of just, stacking workouts, right? You just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. And like you said, sometimes you capture some kids who maybe weren't as into it, weren't as consistent. I got one kid that's playing with Mark up at St. A's who, if he hadn't started doing this, he's probably not a college lacrosse player. But he started this year as a sophomore, and he's a naturally skinny guy. He's not a big guy, but these same thing. Over the last couple of years, he just kept kind of stacking those workouts and getting a little bigger and a little bit stronger. And he's a really exceptional athlete, but not a naturally big person. But you suddenly get that really good athlete and you get a little bit of meat on them and suddenly they can play in college.
Yeah. Mike, for that program you're talking about, you're testing this out, made me think as well. How many days a week do you feel like? Three?
Yep, because I really I've become a really big fan of three total bodies. It doesn't, from a business standpoint, it doesn't work for us because we'd have to revamp our entire business. But I'm really tempted to revamp our entire business because I
Well,
do like it. I like being able to get three lower body workouts in. I like being able to get three speed workouts in. Like I think there's a bunch of benefits to the 3 day that you don't get out of the 4 day. But we for so long, we're 24 or 20, no, 26 years into this kind of 4 day summer program that we've been running. So it would be tough to, on a bigger scale, to scrap it. But
yeah. Yeah. And I just feel like, though, with what we're talking about with the one main and two assisted and kind of taking away some of the extra in you could do that for 4 days because you're really not killing them. And you can get you could still get those patterns. And I know what you're saying. You like three better. I'm the same way. If I can get somebody in for three, I love it. I love that they're there that 3 days, which is awesome. But I feel like my programming is easier when I have a 3 day a week person as opposed to two. And then I feel like it's just a different feel.
that's where like three is better than two. And I think three is better than four in my mind because four is really two and two. That's what it comes down to. Whereas three is three. Three is, like I'm doing lower body 3 days a week, so I can start looking at, okay, what are the three main things I want to do from a lower body perspective? And then when we kind of sprinkle in this post circuit, then I think, okay, what are the 9 things that I want to do or 8 things that I want to do afterwards from a patterning standpoint that are gonna kind of get me where I want to go. So
Mike, would that be logistically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Monday, Wednesday, and either Friday, Saturday,
well,
or
see, it's funny. We do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And
Mhm.
that's why what I've thought about from a business standpoint is if we ever did do it, then our more advanced athletes would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then people that wanted to do 2 day would be Tuesday, Thursday. So we'd almost have two different. But it would also mean 5 work days for the staff who now they're used to working 4 long days and having,
Yeah,
a Friday, Saturday. So there's a lot of kind of business logistical considerations that I don't have to think about with my group because it's just I have one group of 10 to 12 kids. So I can run my little experiments as I see fit.
Yeah. But let's say you're back in a college setting or a high school setting.
Well, I'd be 3 days if I was in high school or college, without a doubt. If I was back doing it again, I'd be going 3 days.
So
Absolutely.
BU though, they're playing on Friday. So you're going to go Monday,
Oh
Wednesday.
no, well, in season would go back to two.
Okay.
Yep, in
You go
season
back to two.
would be two. Yeah, because that's
Wow.
what we did anyway. Because it was two total bodies in season anyway. That's what we always did. So that wouldn't end up changing that much. But preseason would probably be three,
Okay.
or 3 lifting days and 2 conditioning days. Or what I'd probably do actually if I was in college, it would probably be six. It would probably be 3 lifting days and 3 conditioning days.
Okay.
Busy
So,
days a week. Get them up out of bed, torture them a little.
so Tuesday, Thursday, were you doing conditioning? That's what you're talking about. And Monday, Wednesday, you were
Well, I
doing.
wouldn't. Now we're doing it all just in the 3 day.
No,
But if
no,
I
I
was
meant
in college,
in the college setting.
in college, it would just be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. We'd be conditioning, and
Okay.
again, Saturday again. If I was in college, Saturday would probably be a game day, like play games. In terms of go
Oh
out
yeah.
to play. We'd play ultimate frisbee some days because if you want to get guys' heart rates up and get them to condition, play a game. We'd have great games, ultimate frisbee, and we had this. I don't even know. Actually, I do know where it came from. It was Mark Verstegen's version of team handball, which was basically, I think you could run 2 steps and then you had to pass, and there was some sort of a goal. You could use a trash can, you could use a lacrosse goal with a goalie in it, whatever it was. But we would play team handball that way, and you really have to move the ball because you get 2 steps and then boom, you got to move it. 2 steps and you got to move it. So it's very hockey-like in terms of guys are always thinking about pass and move, pass and move, pass and move, and I mean our guys would literally they would play that for an hour with no problem. And I used to stick the heart rate monitors on them while we would do it. And I mean, guys are absolutely like in the, like you said when you were doing the stuff on the ice, like high intensity kind of heart rates that they're getting, but everybody's laughing, everybody's having a blast. No one, it's not like we're running 300-yard shuttles. We're just out there for an hour playing a game of kind of half-assed team handball or ultimate frisbee and having a blast.
It's true. I was shocked at how, when I'm at stick and puck and I'm trying to sprint and, doing whatever, doing a Herbie or whatever, and I get my heart rate up. But then I go and play 20 minutes with these kids, 2-on-2, 3-on-2, 3-on-3, whatever, and half ice. And I can't believe, and I'm not, going nuts. But you're playing, you're skating around, and the heart rate is just out of control. It's why I say to people, like, if you want to get cardio in without doing cardio, pick a sport that you love and that hopefully don't get hurt in. We're not checking or anything. Well, I told the kids I can check, but you can't. But it was amazing to me. Like, as soon as there's other people involved, man, and I can't imagine the guys. I guess the concern would be, guys, take it easy out there. Don't get hurt on Saturday.
Well, and that's the good thing about that. Like the like whether it was ultimate frisbee or these things, it's really hard because somebody's not. You can't run that much. You can only 2 steps, and then you're just defending. You're all over the place. Trying to. Because if the ball goes on the ground, it's turnover goes the other way. You know what I mean? If the ball's down, turnover goes to the other team. We just play whatever. Skins and shirts and
And you go back to Jeremy Frisch stuff. You ever watch Jeremy Frisch, or I did a Strength Coach TV there, and got to watch him in action and three of his kids were there, and it was just crazy, like the stuff they were doing. People would have had a heart. And we were talking about that, like throwing the balls at the kids, and they were running around, and they were just having a blast, and it was just looked like so much fun.
we used to play. We used to have great dodgeball tournaments at work, like Thursday sometimes with dodgeball for conditioning. And then kids always managed to screw it up. One of my friend's sons literally stayed the whole day and played dodgeball. We didn't realize it. And he had to pitch in his baseball game and he couldn't pitch.
Oh my God.
And I talked to the mother and she was like, so and so came home and his arm was just hanging because he stayed for like 4 hours and played dodgeball. And I was like, he wasn't supposed to be there. He was like, yeah, but he knew that no one was going to tell him to leave because no one was really paying attention.
To
So he
that.
kept staying for the next game. Another group would leave and he'd stay for the next game. So there's always a way to screw it up.
All right, Coach. Good stuff. Thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, Ant. I appreciate it.